and you made it to Wednesday. Good for you. So as I said, there was a lot in that last section, lot of different conflicts, but it all started with the commanders realizing that they could lead people, that people would follow them and not the government, and they got a lot of power. And with that power, what started was civil wars, okay? Wars between the same people. And we've talked in class that these are kind of the worst kind of wars because you are losing lives that are from the same place. You're using the resources and the money are going in to fight yourselves. Not an outside enemy, but yourselves. So this is always a bad sign when a civil war breaks out because you're losing twice, basically. Either side. So the first two people you start to see are Marius, and again, lots of people are named Marius and Gaius and Caesar, and do your best to kind of get through these names. But you have Marius and you have Sulla. Sulla was a commander. He was chosen to fight. And then at some point, the assembly says, nah, you know what? We want Marius, we want him to now do the job. Sulla gets upset, comes back to Rome, takes his position back by force, and then he decides to be a dictator for, more than a year. And if you remember, a dictator was only supposed to be used in crises and was only supposed to have the job for a max of 6 months. So he has doubled that time. These little things that we start seeing men do against the rules of the Republic is what breaks the Republic down. Okay, so Sulla was able to get away with not being a dictator for 6 months, but over a year, and then he decides to retire. Which leads us to Pompey and Caesar. So Pompey and Caesar start off as friends. They're commanders of their own armies. They're going into Gaul together. They're defeating it. They're expanding the Roman Empire. They are great until they come back and start breaking even more rules and then deciding that, wait, no, I want to rule. And so they start to fight against each other. Caesar is the overall winner in this, and Caesar comes back to Rome, and Caesar doesn't decide to name himself a dictator for 6 months. No, because you don't have to do that anymore. A year, I think I'll go a little bit longer. For life, yes. So Caesar decides to name himself dictator for life. Totally doesn't even care about the rules of the Republic here. The poor love him because he helps the poor out. But the Senate, the aristocrats, the people in the Republic, they are like, he is crazy. And so they want to get rid of him because this obviously is the downfall of the Republic. And if they allow Caesar to do this, then what do they have? Where are they going to go? So they make a plan. The event that everybody knows about Caesar is he is stabbed to death 27 times by his friends. Brutus is one of his friends. The good old line, "E tu, Brute," meaning even you, my friend, you stabbed me in the back. Have you heard that before? My friend stabbed me in the back. Hey, goes back to Caesar. And that happens on March 15th. 44 BC. It's also known as the Ides of March. So, we were this close to being and learning about Caesar on the Ides of March. But, then Corona's hit, so. So with Caesar dead, you now get your last peoples in this big old conflict of ending of the Republic and moving towards the empire. And that would be Octavian. So Octavian is actually the nephew of Caesar, but Caesar names him as his heir. And so Octavian comes back to Rome to settle the score. He comes back to Rome purely for revenge. And the book says, you know, his enemy, Mark Antony, which they were not close, they were more frenemies. But for a while, they were ruling Rome together with one other person. So there were 3 rulers in Rome. Why Mark Antony becomes an enemy is because of Cleopatra. And so you read that Newsella article. Cleopatra became Pharaoh of Egypt. And Cleopatra was going to stay in power however she had to. And she was a pretty smart woman, but she was also very sneaky, conniving, knew how to work people, and she made Mark Antony basically fall in love with her. And so he kind of totally forgets about Rome. He goes and he marries Cleopatra, even though he was already married to, I believe it was Augustus's own sister. But, you know, at one point, Mark Antony comes back. Octavian forgives him. They split Rome into the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, which is going to be important because that split stays after Mark Antony dies. But, you know, Octavian kind of forgives him, brings him in. Everything is good. Mark Antony is back on being Roman, and until he goes and then Cleopatra meets him again, and this time, you know, Octavian is just like, enough is enough, and he wages a war on both Cleopatra and Mark Antony. In the end, they both die, and what you have now is the Roman people who really were for Caesar are backing Octavian. Octavian has now gotten rid of Mark Antony, who became a traitor, and Cleopatra, who was the Pharaoh of Egypt. And so they kind of are like, let's just give him Rome. And so this is how Octavian, in a nutshell, I mean, there's a lot more to it, but in a nutshell, this is how Octavian becomes Augustus and how he becomes the first emperor of Rome. Okay, so now we're officially in an empire. That is where we're going to stop before break, because you guys get now a nice little spring break. Hopefully the weather is going to be cooperative and we can all get out into the sunshine. But when we return, we'll look at life in the empire. Does it change that much? Not really. But it's another span of the Roman history that lasts quite a long time. So until after spring break, I will not be wearing the same thing. I'll change this time. I wish you well, all the best, and I hope we do get to see each other face to face soon.